Yes, yeah, my name is Kevin Georgian. Actually, I'm still a doctoral researcher at the University of Luxembourg.
All right. You are working on a specific field to do with Luxembourg relations with the African continent, specifically the Great Lakes region, where you have the River Congo, etc. Now, talking about this field, how would you frame your focus?
The colonial history of Luxembourg is mostly linked to the Belgian history, so to the Belgian Congo. But in general, we have to say that's also why I didn't focus on a specific region during my research. I focused also on other countries or other colonies to show that the European colonialism was kind of a transnational or even then trans-imperial project. Our state was never only linked to one country or to one colony, but it was much more entangled or trans-imperial, transnational. Let's take the example of the Belgian Congo. Definitely the Belgian were the most population of the white population. The second one was the Portuguese. And but also Luxembourgers were kind of were part of the community of the colonizers. So, but still we can find, or even I found in my research, that Luxembourgers were actually present in every colonial empire. So also in the British, in the German Empire, the German colonies, in the French colonies, but especially in the Belgian Congo. So the research project was launched by the government, Luxembourg's government. So there was the intention, then especially after 2020 or the summer 2020, when there was the Black Lives Movement also happening in Luxembourg. Let's say within this context, there was also the parliamentary question if Luxembourg should apologize for their past, or their colonial past. And that's when the government financed the project at university to make a research on this history. It was me. I applied for this position. Then I had now the last 4 years I worked on this.
The young men that were accepted or found positions in Congo, they mostly traveled alone at first, and later sent. How did they start their families?
Started their families.
Was there interracial marriages? Or?
Okay. This question. First I start with the but also then it depends like on which period we talk. But if you're talking now, first of before the First World War, first. The young men, they made the first term, so 3 years as a single, and then they had like 6 months holiday. That's when they went back to Luxembourg, and mostly they got married there, and they came then with their wife to the Belgian Congo. If we talk about
this was the pre-colonial period.
No, also the colonial period. And also then especially in the 50s. Also, the most men who came were already married, and even if you look at the population in the 1950s, half of these Luxembourgers were employed, and the half were family members. So we have a huge group of so-called housewives, so women who came with their husband to the Belgian Congo. The question of like so-called interracial marriage. I think that's another aspect, but definitely that's the case, and it's but that's the point of violence. So if we think on colonialism, I don't know, but maybe people think like of a chaotic situation or something. That can be the case, but mostly, we have to see that the colonial state is a state, so everything is also documented. Okay, things are documented. Who has a need for, who has a function for the state, but even we can also see, we can trace this let's say, sexual violence based on these sources, because interracial marriage was mostly, colonial period was mostly based on violence, and mostly for the need for the man, but that plays definitely a role also in my research. There are also different. I can also give examples how that worked. So people, these single men who went to the colonies, they were then also then looking for not for a wife, but mostly for casual sex, and who was violent, but this intermarriage or interrelation was mostly based on they had like households, ménagères. That's also how it was called because it was not forbidden, but it was not encouraged or well seen. So in my research, when we talk about also about the children who were born out of these relations, in the public discussion today, we just know the few who came to Luxembourg because their father sent them. But during my research, I also have seen that the much bigger part were never recognized by their fathers. You can see this, for example, where because Congolese women could go to the colonial administration and say, I have this child from this man, but he's not paying or he's not doing something. So that you can trace these cases in the archives. But in general, I would say that interracial marriage was very violent, or mostly violent, was always just for the man's casual or desire, because very, very few women actually came to Luxembourg. There was so the most they just had like their households when they were at this station, and when they left, they also forgot this woman, or even if they got a child. It's a really sensitive topic, especially also when we talk about missionaries, because that also then it's.
They also participated.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, definitely. That's. But it's much more difficult to find traces based on this. If you see, like, if you talk to people or who are younger or who are like maybe during that time, and even if you read kind of sources against the grain, you can see that it was happening. I can give the example that that missionaries made also tours through the through region, countryside, and when there were like children, like so-called métis, then you could say like, okay, how this child got there. And there's also the link with Luxembourgish missionaries, and then there you can say definitely that they were also involved. So we can't exclude them from this history just because they didn't, it was really like a taboo, they didn't really talk about it. But yeah.
So in some of these cases, these children were registered in the name of their dads, their Luxembourgish fathers. So records exist that they are there.
Yeah, but first you have to say that the most of these cases, the Luxembourgish father refused that they were the father. There are also cases where they refused that they're the fathers, but they were still paying the woman. So you're not sure, like, what are the relations. It's you really have to see like individually on the different cases, but it existed. Yeah.
And I read in your article that it isn't. I mean, when we talk of recognition of these children, I mean, on state level, like the opportunity that's granted offspring of Luxembourgish people in Brazil, etc., it's not extended to people in Congo. Is that an official line, or is it just something that was allowed to pass down the drain? I mean, something that there are not so many people fighting for it, so the state can afford.
Yeah, that's one point I made, also based on my research, that I said when we talk about let's say immigration of Luxembourgers to America, Brazil, we also have to include actually the Congo, because there was even if it was just temporary an immigration of Luxembourgers, and then when we talk about people who have like grandparents or grandparents who are Luxembourgers, and we give this possibility to people in Brazil or in the US. I think it's just like equal to give the same possibility to people who live today in the Congo. But definitely it's much more complicated, because if the father was not recognizing this child, but still, as I said, there are also points where the person recognized their child, and they just send one of them to Luxembourg, the other stay there. So I think it's still a point we have to we have to think of. Why the discussion wasn't there, I just can say what I think is also because there was not really a big of a political connection today between Luxembourg and the Republic of Congo. But I think it's definitely a point we have to keep in mind when we have the discussion of okay, who has grandparents from Luxembourg or like grandparents from Luxembourg. Yeah.
I think technically and on the basis of principle, there is you made a case. You have a case there. Yeah. Especially now I mean we have DNA procedures